Welcome again, Pisces. It's January 2016. Dadhichi here from astrology.com.au with your overview of what's happening celestially. Just a few of the transits that may be influencing you if you're born under the sign of the fish, Pisces. For those of you that are new, we do this every month. We get a bit of a synopsis and then you can have a more detailed analysis at the website, which I'll tell you about a little bit later. You know, Mars in the 8th house in its transit is not considered really a great transit. You've had that, but fortunately after the 4th, it moves into your 9th house, into the sign of Scorpio, which is indeed a lucky position, bringing with it the opportunity for travels, journeys, a push for higher education. If you're looking at doing some tertiary studies, this is the time to do it, and you'll have the drive, the ambition, and the physical energy to do that. It's quite lucky. You've also had Venus and Saturn. Saturn's a longer moving transit, slower one, in the 10th house of career, and Venus just there, which will continue to stay in that particular sector up until the 24th of January. So this is generally pretty lucky. However, these two planets are not your luckiest. So for those of you born under Pisces or either having the Pisces ascendant, there could be some obstructions there in your workplace, and perhaps your social activities, the people you're dealing with, are not exactly going to be your cup of tea. So it could well be, especially because we see that on the 2nd of January, Mercury has just moved to your 12th house, which brings you into a bit more of a low-key period, or the desire to be a little more low-key is short-lived because it goes into its retrograde motion on the 6th, coming back into that 11th house on the 9th of January, and thereby re-engaging you in probably those activities that were not at all your cup of tea. So you're going to have to grin and bear it for a little while. Mercury is going to continue in that stance up until January 26th, when it moves direct. And by the way, there's a full moon on the 24th. So you're seeing that that last week of the month is really when things can start to move forward. So I'd say the first couple of weeks of the month are going to be somewhat of a trial and a tribulation for you, notwithstanding the fact that Mars is in a better position. And one of your ruling planets, Jupiter, is in the 7th house with your 5th rule of the moon, which is quite lucky in terms of your relationships, your marriage, and just dealing with the general public. But back on the work front, that is a different matter altogether, and one that you need to take control of. Take a few deep breaths, and hopefully you can get through that by that last week of the month. Sun, Pluto, and Mercury, at least for that first couple of days, in your 11th house of social activities. Also, a bit of a difficult one. The Sun is not a friendly planet for you, so that brings with it some tests in your social sphere. And there again, we see a new moon taking place on the 10th. Now, that is surrounded by a few other aspects leading up to that, such as the square from Venus to Neptune, the conjunction of the Sun to Pluto, all very, very intense and all pointing to this social area of your life, and one which may not be all that comfortable. The new moon does indicate the acquisition of new friends, or if we look at that as more of an esoteric reading, the potential for you to view friendships in a new light. New type of friends, perhaps, is more to the point. So you may have outgrown some of these people. You'll possibly maintain those friendships, but you'll be looking further afield to people who can fulfill this deeper spiritual need that you have within yourself. This Jupiter transit continues up until September, so you've still got a few months there to make hay while the sun shines. It's not the sun, it's Jupiter, but you get my point. And you've also got the karmic point, the North Node, moving through this 7th house. So although this is generally a fortuitous transit, the transit of Rahu, or the North Node, indicates some massively big lessons that you'll be learning in your relationships at this time. I'd put it to you that the person you're involved with, if, for example, you're married or in a long-term committed relationship, that person will themselves be going through some pretty significant lessons during this cycle. And by virtue of your association with them, you'll be learning some lessons that are associated with their lessons, if I could put it that way. When the North Node or the future karma point is moving through that part of the zodiac, the opposite side of the zodiac has what we call the South Node, or the past karma planet, and that is moving through your sun sign right now, along with your other ruling planet, Neptune. So this is a very uplifting and a spiritual combination that we see there. And over this next 12 to 18 months, you are going to see the conjunction of Neptune and Ketu, Ketu being the South Node. And that we're going to talk about as it gets closer, but I think there's going to be some huge awakening for a lot of Pisceans during this upcoming period. It's a period when you're going to have deeper insights, and your intuitive powers, which are well noted astrologically, are going to be even stronger throughout this period. So what you do with that is another matter, and that's what I'd like to address over the coming months. We see particularly you need to apply this intuitive process to some of the friendships that you're dealing with, and some of the employer-employee relations that we see there with that Saturn transit in your 10th house. That's going to be there for at least another year. So the obstructions that we see in your professional life need to be handled delicately, with wisdom, and fortunately the conjunction of these two spiritual planets, I believe, is going to help you in that respect. You cannot be too emotional is, I think, the key to getting through this and to turning whatever seems like a negative right now into a positive for you. The retrogression of Jupiter on the 8th of January in that area is akin to the retrogression of Mercury. It's interesting too that Mercury rules your marital sector while Jupiter is transiting in this sector. So a lot of focus there in that first week to 10 days is going to be on the relationships. Jupiter is going to stay retrograde for some time, and I'll alert you to when it moves back into its direct motion. But that's showing us particularly that you have a lot of work to do karmically with your partners. Business partners as well are covered by this transit. Venus enters the conjunction of Saturn on the 9th. Then you have the trine from Venus to Uranus occurring on the 13th. The Sun trining Jupiter on the 14th, and Sun coming into conjunction with Mercury. So these are a cluster of aspects that are happening in quick succession, all related to relationships, but also Uranus being in your second house of finance could signal some positive news for you in terms of finances and money. Ordinarily, we would say that Uranus can be a little unsettling because what happens is not at all expected or not planned for. But when we have the triangular aspect, that 120-degree aspect, especially forming from Venus, the ruler of the 8th house of shared resources, someone may gift you, or you can have some seed funding for a project if you're in business, better profits, and certainly better income as a result of your connection with the public, and your clients can be looked forward to. The Mercury trine Jupiter is also important. That brings together the two components, which is Jupiter ruling your sun sign and Mercury ruling your partnerships in a triangular aspect. Both those planets in retrogression. It's interesting, there's a favourable relationship or an understanding being reached, but that understanding may not be able to be, I suppose, formalised. There can be in principle an understanding. This could be, as what we call in business, a memorandum of understanding, and at a later stage, the contract being signed or formalised. In any case, that's still good news. It's light at the end of the tunnel for you, and it ushers in a new period of understanding, good news in terms of the written form or the spoken word for you. You do have to be careful of the Venus square Jupiter aspect on January 18th. Venus there in the 10th house and Jupiter in the 7th. That could be a conflict of interest with the one you love. Your work may not be sitting well with your partner. There can be some differences in your agenda, you simply need to come together and communicate. You need to use that Mercury-Jupiter component that I mentioned earlier. Mercury sextiles the Sun. Well, it's sextiling the Sun throughout the month. That's also good in terms of bringing with it some profits. So this is all to do with finances. Mars trining Neptune from your 9th house to the sun sign Neptune is also excellent. Good news of a journey or some opportunities. If you've been reaching for the stars in terms of some sort of study or an extension of your career, some new skill sets that you need, this is the time when you'll get the go ahead and you'll actually be inspired by what it is you do at that time. I mentioned earlier the favourable aspects at the end of the month with Mercury going forward, Venus moving to your 11th house of profits, good friendships, that type of thing. But Venus also produces a lovely sextile aspect to Neptune on the 31st, which again has to do with your friendships. Your strong ideals may finally be reached in this sense. If you had trouble with friends, you may have some understanding or an agreement at that time. We'll continue this in February. I hope you'll join me. In the meantime, astrology.com.au. We have the textual version of this with more detail, and I've just uploaded the 12 signs for the whole of 2016, covering all areas of your life. Hope you'll take a look at that. Then you can get this month in context of where you're going. See you next month. Good luck. Again, Happy New Year. Bye-bye, Pisces.